We have the plant quarantine presentation and the origin presentation from South America. In between, we'll have panel discussions on chickpeas, plant quarantine, and of course, the interactive Q&A sessions. Post this, at 7 o'clock, we start off with our awards and entertainment ceremony. That's going to be pretty exciting. Few awards to give away. You're going to enjoy that. And the entertainment ceremony would be something to look forward to. Some of the world's, I might say, if not India's, most wanted performers are going to be on stage with us. So we have a packed program to this afternoon and this evening, ladies and gentlemen. And I request you all to help us make sure that we stick to the time. I'd request our speakers, our panelists to ensure that we stick to the time that's been allotted so we can sort of catch up with the hour and a half that we've lost during the day. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, this session will feature presenters who will talk to you about the Origin Middle East, North Africa, Origin Africa, and of course, Origin India. May I please request the chair for this session, Vice President, India Pulses and Grains Association. Please welcome Mr. Bimal Kothari to please grace the dais. Our speakers for this session, Mr. Jairaj Patel of Hakan Agro, Mr. Ketan Patel, ETG Group, and finally, Mr. G. Chandrasekhar of the Hindu Business Line. Thank you, gentlemen. Once again, to remind you, we shall not have any breaks in these sessions right up to the end of the day. If at any time you feel like having tea or coffee, they'll be running tea or coffee. Please feel free, bring a cup in. If you don't feel like moving out of the hall, please ask our associates. They'll be glad to make sure that you get whatever beverage that you want. With that, ladies and gentlemen, once again reminding you to please ensure that your mobiles are silent or buzzer. It's time to hand you over to your chair, Mr. Bimal Kothari.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I think you had a delicious lunch, though we are running late. I think after a delicious lunch, normally the speeches makes one sleep. But I assure you that the presentations which are coming are very interesting and that those will keep you wide awake. We have this afternoon 3 presentations, which is on Middle East and North Africa by Jairaj Patel, who is right to me. And then I think everybody wants to know what is happening in Africa. As Mr. Mahesh Patel yesterday said that the production has increased multifold in last 5-7 years from 60,000 tons to 600,000 tons by 2015. So I think everybody is looking forward to hear what is happening in Africa. So that is by Mr. Ketan Patel. And then finally, the India, which is the largest producer, largest importer, and largest consumer, and the leader in pulses trade and industry worldwide. The presentation from Mr. G. Chandrasekhar, the editor, Hindu Business Line. So first, I will request Mr. Jairaj Patel to make his presentation on Middle East and North Africa.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Just to put out records straight, I am Jairaj Patel and not Sudhakar Tomar because, unfortunately, I think it's been mentioned in the pamphlet it's Sudhakar T. Well, at the outset, I would like to convey my sincere gratitude to the organizers of the Global Pulses Conclave to have me here to address this August gathering and to share 2 pennies worth of my thoughts with all of you. And I also take this opportunity to congratulate the organizers for the success of this conclave. As we were told yesterday that the registration reached 600 plus, so I think that was a tremendous job given the fact that this was a maiden venture. You would all agree that the past 5 years have been very turbulent years as far as commodity trading has been concerned. We saw oil prices boom to such an extent that there was a shift in the production of food, which was produced more for energy rather than for food. In fact, the world had come to debate whether food should be grown for food purposes or to provide energy. We have seen weather to be very erratic in this period, where we saw large areas of land being inundated with water and some areas practically left without any water. And this naturally impacted agricultural production. Pulses have not been a different story. They have not been an exception. And during this period, we have seen pulses prices rise to historical highs. There was a time, I think 5 years ago, yellow peas used to be traded at $180 a ton on CNF basis into India. And then we saw yellow peas being traded at $450 on FOB basis. We saw tuor, which was traded at $250, being traded at up to $1,200. So as a trader of pulses, there has been a lot of transparency, and the flow of information in the last 5 years become so tremendous. The trader, in addition to weather, consumption, imports, has also to keep track of what is happening on the oil prices, what's happening other commodity prices, and for all you know, he also has to keep a track on the Greek debt talks, because these are going to have an impact on the currency. We saw in India in the recent past that the currency devalued so drastically and so quickly, it didn't give anybody time to react. And within slightly over a month, we saw a correction as swift, if not drastic. I'm sure each one of us here who is a stakeholder in the pulses industry must have woken up one morning, at least in the last 4 or 5 months, I guess, asking himself or herself, what the hell am I doing in pulses trade? But pulses it is, and this is what we do, and when we come to the problems, we need to address these problems. So why pulses? Well, due to their ability to provide economical protein security, food security, and being good sources of protein-rich feed ingredients, pulses are an important food item. As crops, these improve soil fertility due to their ability to produce and fix nitrogen. Well, having had the opportunity to work in countries which form part of the Middle East and North Africa, which collectively are known as MENA, I would be concentrating on the potential in this region with regard to pulses. What is the area of interest? Now, if you see on the map here, the dark colored countries are commonly accepted as the MENA countries, and sometimes the countries which are in light color are also considered as part of the MENA countries. MENA is a very important region for pulses. As in the Indian subcontinent, pulses provide protein and sustenance to the majority of the population in MENA countries. MENA is considered the birthplace of civilization and also pulses. It comprises of 19 on the dark-colored countries and 32 on the light-colored countries. I mean, there are a total of, if we say, 32 countries which form MENA. The population of MENA region in the least extent is about 381 million people, which is about 6% of the world's population. And on a greater extent, it is roughly 523 million people, which is about 9% of the world population. The figures vary depending upon what countries you are including in the region. It has an area of 15.5 million square kilometers, which is 9.41% of the world's land, again taking on the higher side. The economy tops, as per latest figures, about $5 trillion. And as of 2011, 8 of the 12 OPEC nations are within the MENA region. It is full of contrasts in terms of monetary values, incomes ranging from 1,061 in Yemen to 49,480 in Qatar, as per 2011 estimates. The average per capita income is $8,594. But MENA has less than 2% of renewable fresh water. As per FAO report of 2011, the MENA region is vulnerable to climate change, increased temperatures, reduced precipitation, and rising sea levels. Water scarcity, which is highest in the world, will worsen. Climate-sensitive agriculture will be seriously affected. It employs only 12% of the workforce in agriculture. And although agriculture remains an important socio-economic sector, until recently, sector investment in all MENA countries has remained inadequate and unfortunately on low priority. The import food bill is about $60 billion. And amongst this, imports of pulses account for 18% of the world pulses crop. This, in fact, is the second largest import after the Indian subcontinent. The region also has the third largest consumption per capita of pulses after the Indian subcontinent and Latin America. Given the current situation, it shall need to increase its food supply significantly in the coming next 25 years. MENA, as I said, is either 19 or 32 countries, but who matter most in MENA? The 5 largest importers in MENA are Algeria, Egypt, Turkey, UAE, and Iran. Algeria, just an overview, land area of 2.4 million square kilometers. It is the second largest country in Africa, and in fact, it's the 10th largest in the world. But it has, of the 8.2 million hectares arable land, which is only 3.4% of the total land area of Algeria, with a GDP of 11 to 12% coming from agriculture, and only 14% of the labor force is engaged in agriculture. It produces wheat, barley, oats, grapes, olives, citrus, fruits. And amongst pulses, it imports beans, chickpeas, and lentils. Algeria, on an average, needs to import 175,000 metric tons annually to meet the deficit it has. Egypt, with a land area of 995,000 square kilometers and a population of 83 million, only 13.1% of the GDP is coming from agriculture, though it employs 32% in the labor force in agriculture. It produces cotton, rice, corn, wheat, beans, fruits, and vegetables. And it produces about 370,000 metric tons of various pulses such as beans, chickpeas, lentils, etc. But it still requires to import almost 350,000 metric tons, which is 50% of its consumption requirement to meet the deficit. Turkey. Turkey is one of the better economies within the MENA countries. And in fact, Turkey forms from the lighter color, that is, sometimes it gets included in the MENA region. It has a population of 73 million. 9.4% of the GDP comes from agriculture, and 30% of the labor force is engaged in agriculture. It produces tobacco, cotton, grain, olives, sugar, beets, hazelnuts, pulses, and citrus. Amongst pulses, chickpeas and lentils are main items, which account for 75% of the Turkish pulses production. And it imports mainly chickpeas, dry peas, beans, etc. from various origins. UAE. UAE is it's 83,000 square kilometers with a population of only 8.25 million. Very little agriculture, employs only 7%, only 1.1% GDP comes from agriculture. But what about UAE? What is noticeable for UAE is that the imports have increased to almost 440,000 tons over the last 2-3 years. Although local consumption is low, it's a transit point for various countries where the products go either as whole or as splits. Iran. Iran is another major consumer. It has a land area of 1.5 million square kilometers, population of 75 million people. Almost 11% GDP is from agriculture, 25% labor is involved in agriculture. Amongst various products it produces is wheat, rice, other grains, sugar, beets, sugarcane, fruits, nuts, cotton. And amongst pulses, it produces beans, chickpeas, and lentils, but still Iran imports approximately 150,000 metric tons of pulses each year. What are the factors which affect pulses trade in these countries? Well, first and foremost is the political instability. In the recent past, we have seen this region has been very unstable. The Arab Spring has seen a fallout, and the region has seen toppling of governments in Tunisia, Egypt, Libya. Syria is on the boil, and Yemen can anytime erupt again. Government and quarantine policies are quite difficult here. If you ship something to Algeria, and God forbid if it is rejected by the health authorities, you could literally be playing with your grandchild and wondering if that cargo ever got out of that country. Weather naturally has an impact, but as I said in the FAO report, they said the weather is having an impact on the production in this region. Rumors, misinformation, domestic production has an impact. Prices in amongst the domestic production, Turkey being a producer, if it has a less crop, it can impact prices in the origins. Various prices in the world prices, other products, prices of other commodities. We have seen Egyptians stop buying red split lentils after a certain point of time. Exchange rates, a weak currency makes for expensive imports. And we are seeing that, for instance, in Syria, the exchange rate has really gone up, as it has happened in Iran, where exchange rate has gone up from 1,200 Toman a dollar to 2,000 Toman to a dollar now. Foreign exchange availability is a major concern. One could be very happy doing trade in Sudan, never knowing when the LC will actually come. Likewise, after imposition of sanctions on the central bank in Iran, they are facing huge difficulties in raising foreign exchange to pay for their imports. Well, when trading in this region, there are a few things you may well want to know. The contract is written, it is signed, but it has no meaning. Even if you have a 50% advance, it will not help you. Just to cite an instance, I mean, a couple of years ago, the sugar prices had gone up, and as all things happen in commodity, they had come down. One of the buyers who had placed an order for purchase of sugar thought that it's not to his advantage to take the delivery, and he needed a reason to get out. So when he sees the cargo before taking delivery, he says, "My God, I can't take this cargo because I told you to stitch the bag with green thread. You have stitched it white thread." And he refused to take the cargo. You can go into arbitration, but these arbitration awards are practically unenforceable in these countries. Information is difficult to obtain, is often unreliable. Destination prices depend a lot on the origins